Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you're having a great time at IHA 2020. Well, we are talking about keeping the conversation alive on social media using our hashtag IHA 2020. 5 days, the far-packed panel, 180 plus speakers and 100 plus awards, which is happening from the August 31st and to the September 4th, today being our last day. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, this pandemic has taught us the philosophy of minimalism. For a sustainable future, we need to apply the same to future design and get ready now, ladies and gentlemen, for our last panel discussion of this 5-day long summit, which is on hotel design, the designer ownership partnership. Well, the moderator of this session is Vandana Dhawan Saxena, founder and design principal, Studio for Design. We've got our panelists, Bobby Mukherji, Chairman, Bobby Mukherji and Associates. Ritu Bhatia Kler, Managing Director, Total Integrated Design India Private Limited. We've also got Abhishek Mathur, Director, Studio HBA. We've got Peter Joehnk, Partner and Founder, JOI-Design. We've got Jeremy, he's the Senior Vice President, Wimberly, Allison, Tong and Go Limited. And we've got Marko, Dobrota, the Principal of Smallwood. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this, I would be requesting our CEO of BW Business Communities, Mr. Bhuvnesh Khanna, will be just joining us in a moment.
I'm there. Thank you, Bhavna. You've been a wonderful host. So, this will cap all the 18 sessions, 4 keynote addresses.
Wow.
Before we head into the awards of this record-breaking 5-day BW Hotelier Indian Hospitality Summit and Awards, which we call the IHA 2020, right? So this has occupied a mind space in the Indian hospitality, travel and tourism and F&B industry like none other has, right? It's a brand made out of love, which Anurag and I started when I joined on the 28th of April 2014, and we launched on the 12th of January 2015 at the Leela Chanakyapuri. Rajesh Nambi was the general manager and was the hotel manager, and the general manager is still there, Louis Seller. What a brand, Rajesh Nambi, Louis Seller, Leela, thank you. And see what you planted, where this brand has gone, right? And let me tell you, we shall keep lifting the bar. We are not a big company. We are not a mega media house like many mega media houses are there. We are a proud, hardworking, conscientious, honest, transparent media house, and we will go far. That does not mean the others are not honest. I'm saying they're all honest. मैं अपनी बात कर रहा हूँ, right? हम लोग लगे रहते हैं, हम लोग प्यार मोहब्बत से करते हैं, और हमारे को प्यार, मोहब्बत, सत्कार, आदर और सपोर्ट बहुत मिली है ऑफ द इंडियन हॉस्पिटैलिटी, ट्रैवल एंड टूरिज्म एंड F&B इंडस्ट्री. और मैं उसी सत्कार के साथ अभी निमंत्रण करता हूं हमारे नेक्स्ट शो का, जिसमें 3 लोग विदेश से हैं, तो वो हिंदी नहीं समझेंगे. आई विल कम बैक टू अंग्रेजी.
IHA 2020, everyone, welcome to the incredible panel. Hello. Thank you so much.
This is, like we say, the grand finale, right? This is, I was just saying, this is the final show of the record-breaking Indian BW Hotelier Indian Hospitality Summit and Awards. This has gone on for 5 long days, 18 sessions, 4 keynote sessions. And let me tell you, if I was to tell you, yesterday my sessions lasted for more than 9 hours at a go, right? So that's how it is. Vandana, you need more light on your face. There you go. There is Vandana, our host for the day, for the session. This is a session that I have not, it's not last because it's last. It's last because it's special. Vandana and me have been talking of this session for, Vandana, over 2 months. Let me tell you, the BW Hotelier is one event. We've done 5 days. We have over 180 speakers. We've had 5 juries of over 36 and 100 awards. And today, this was inaugurated by the CEO of the Niti Aayog, which is the new form of the erstwhile Planning Commission, which governs India, which plans for India for the next 5 years. Niti Aayog is now the body which our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has started after he took over in 2014. And Amitabh Kant is an Indian administrator of great repute and a very capable administrator who's aggressive, who's got a lot of foresight, and he sees ahead in the future, right? So Vandana is logging back in. Vandana, can you hear us now?
Hi everyone, welcome to our panel, Hotel Design, the Designer-Owner Partnership. I'm sorry, I'm not being able to hear anyone here, but I'm going to try to begin the show now.
Yes,
so as we all know, we cannot ignore the impact of buildings, more so in this pandemic as we spend a lot of time indoors. And design involves questions like aesthetics, construction methodology, layout, structure, material choices, response to light, ventilation, culture, detail, and this is just to name a few. And besides this already complex problem, designers work very closely with owners. It's almost like a partnership. And owners have a very strong vision of what they want to build. They have a tight budget. And of course, they're not building a monument. They need a return on their investment. So Jeremy, you sort of head WATG and you're joining us from UK. My first question is for you. What is your approach towards designing a hotel project?
Okay, thank you for the question. Can everybody hear me? Because I'm having audio problems. You all can hear me. Excellent.
We can.
Yeah, I mean, for WATG, the what's crucial to our approach is, I think, what we refer to as design narrative. It's us telling the story, and it's our approach is certainly from an aesthetic and a cultural response point of view. It is about how we collect and we collaborate with all the stakeholders involved with a project. Yeah. Sorry. Can everyone still hear me? Have we got some thumbs up? Yeah. Okay. And we over the years, I mean, as a group of professionals and as a company, we've been doing this for 75 years now, and we have what we refer to as probably our 6 real touch points in the design, and I'll just run through those for you. The first one is about the land, and it's about how we respond to the site and the context of the situation, and understanding that in the marketplace. This is done obviously through research and through exploration, but also making sure that we're exploiting the highest potential of that particular site. The second one is far more lyrical than that. It's about scripting the journey, and it's about us being able to emotionally connect with the guest and the guest journey through the site. I'm talking about what we refer to as contextual insights. It's about the narrative of that journey. And once we've established that, we also have to consider today with the amount of brands and the operators that we deal with, it's also about beginning to put those brand touch points into the design. The third point would be placemaking. Placemaking is about us creating a memory, something that is clearly identifiable. It's about hallmarks, it's about the physicality of the buildings, and it's about the spaces in between. It's creating what I think in the 60s we would refer to as the Kodak moment. Today we refer to as the Instagram moment in each one of the designs. And I think that comes very clearly from a very disciplined design process. And that leads us on to the fourth point. The fourth point is about integrated design. WATG is very lucky to work with incredible amount of, not just in our in-house disciplines of architecture, landscape, interiors and strategic, But we're working throughout the industry with all the other professionals, and it's about collaboration and world-class professionals in all the design disciplines, and it's coming together with a very common vision. The fifth point we touch is about understanding that this property is about connecting people, and the connecting people is about choreographing a seamless, scripted journey through that property for all the guests. The very last point is going back, I think, to what we would refer to as our first one, which is about the land. And it is leaving a place better than we originally found it. This comes from the very heart of the WATG culture. We were founded as an island on the island of Hawaii. And it's a case of, do not disturb. It's a leaving, we've been trusted over the years with some fantastic sites and pristine landscapes, and we're privileged enough to work with those, and we just want to make sure that we abide by some really good international standards, and we are culturally sensitive to those. So it's a very holistic approach.
Thanks, Jeremy. Abhishek, coming to you. What do you enjoy designing more? Is it a mid-scale hotel, or which has certain constraints in place, or is it an upscale hotel project that gives you, flight for fancy? And why would that be so?
Thanks, Vandana. I hope everyone can hear me. I think for me, there's no limitation to scale as such. I mean, both ways, right? Like, I think I would echo the sentiment of most of the people on the panel. I certainly enjoy designing hotel as much as I would love designing a chair, to be frank. It's just about like really following through the process. In fact, what Jeremy very eloquently pointed out, how does one sort of cater to those parameters? And I think those are scalable qualities in design. I would think that at the end of the day, whether we are designing a business hotel or an upscale hotel, the landscape of today, the design landscape determines that we are trying to not only do problem solving, but we are trying to impart a personality to the design. How do we have humanistic values into whatever we are designing? How do we see it in a large context? And I think those things are quite applicable whether to design an urban hotel or a resort property. I think if you were to really press me down on this question, I would say it has to do something with where I have to travel for each of those projects. Certainly, some sites are much more evocative than the others. And in that sense, I suppose, one could possibly play favorites at a time. But I mean, we all love what we do, and I certainly enjoy doing every part of it. Is it a cop-out, or does that answer your question?
Ritu, as we've discussed, design is truly a partnership with the client. When do you think is the right time for owners to engage with designers? Is it at the project feasibility stage, or do you typically come in when designs are frozen to a certain level with the architect? So TID primarily does interior design. So what do you think is the right time for owners to engage us as designers, and especially in the interior design domain? How does this work?
It's an interesting question and very relevant because a client and designer relationship is long, especially in hotels. It's 3 to 5 years, and the interior designer has to be there till the hotel opens. I would advise that the interior designer is brought in day one, right from the time the client has done their feasibility, they have a vision, and they are putting the team together with the architect. Ideally, that is the situation that the interior designer comes in, so that all the key stakeholders are there from day one to plan and to brainstorm together on the vision for the project, for the hotel. With the end goal being the completion of the hotel. And there are different situations. In this situation of a greenfield where interior design is brought in, our work does effectively start once the architect has created the spatial zoning. So once that is in, the interior designer comes in to do the fine-tuning in the space planning, which would then make it easier for the concept to roll through. And I'd actually like to give two examples. One is the IBIS hotels that we do. And even though they are small public areas, even as small as 6,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet, but we've been brought in right from the beginning. And in small spaces, it's actually more challenging. So with ID coming in earlier, you actually get the best of the space, the efficiency and the circulation. And then the whole process, of course, of the layout to concept to detailing, the material sourcing, it's important for the interior designer to actually be there with the client throughout. And another interesting project where we actually came in later by default because the architectural shell was ready and it was actually an existing hotel which was partially renovated. This is the Hotel Sangam in Madurai. So the clients actually brought us in when the shell was ready, but we could still create the interior public spaces. And it was a clear brief from the client. And the best part about the efficiency of the project was that decisions were fast and there were no changes along the way. And it was a partnership throughout, right from sourcing and site visits till the ending when we actually had a grand opening. And in this project, the brand Courtyard Marriott came in towards the end and of course accepted the design and the operational planning as well. So I hope that interior designers are brought in as early as possible because wherever we are in the process of the execution, we are actually the solution providers.
Maybe I can jump in and ask the same question as Ritu did from another perspective, if that's okay, just to bridge the time before Vandana comes back. Actually, I fully agree, Ritu. As you said, interior designer should come as early as possible to discuss the project and coordinate with architect and M&E consultant and so on. The difficulty is to earn money is more complicated the longer the time frame is. So sometimes it's, especially for the budget project, it's easy for us to go in the last moment, do a sketch design, then go out to tender, and it's done within half a year or so. The long-lasting projects, like big projects on airports, we sometimes are stuck for 5 years or so. Then it becomes difficult for us to earn money. But the project I wanted to speak about is completely different. That's a development of a concept. We had the honor to work with Mr. Chatwal on Taj Hotels, and they had the question what to do with Ginger hotels, which did not fit to a luxury Taj group. So Mr. Chatwal wanted to have a completely new concept for that brand. And together with the marketing agency and the graphic agency, it's DY from Mumbai, we developed a concept for Ginger, and that was really done within half a year from first sketch to installation. And not only for that Goa project, which was the first one, it was also a concept that is suitable for a rollout for all of the Ginger hotels. And that was the theme really was to create icons that could be recognized by guests for that typical brand, for the Ginger brand. So there we were really early, but it was a short term. And the interesting thing is that this was just a concept design and then done for one project. But now I think it's already more than 15 hotels that are done according to that concept.
So in the meantime, just to add to that, I think since we're on the topic of, I think with the owners and the designers. What I think is also important is for owners to bring in all the key stakeholders right in the beginning, not just interior designer, but facility planner, lighting consultant, and landscape consultants. And I think, I'm sure my fellow panelists will agree that it's about putting the team together from day one and taking that through. Hi, Vandana.
In today's day and age, if internet is like this, it's a challenge. It's a bad advertisement.
Probably one of the fellow panelists could take up on the discussion.
I'll take up something on this. In India, many times, the ID is brought in much later, and then you land up, having the architecture of the hotel made by a non-specialist, who's not really made hotels in the past. And we've had disastrous plans, and after we come in and we start making all our planning to make the hotel workable, it lands up in large amounts of surgery to be done to the project, resulting in huge expenses, which is completely unnecessary. It goes into millions of dollars. And we had projects where we had to remove columns, beams, there were no accesses, there was no proper connection between the back of the house and front of the house. The sizing of spaces were wrong, So this is a very common problem that many a times the owners will first just appoint only the architect, not taking into account all the other consultants, including the facility planner, resulting in lots of delays, unnecessary expenses, and headache for everyone.
I completely concur with you, Bobby. I think that where I have as much input from my interior design team from the moment we start with the concept. It is absolutely imperative that overlay, that layer of how the guests will use that space, which an interior designer as a specialist is put in at that fundamental stage. And
it's worldwide. It's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Even starting from a small guest room, getting the bathroom size right to get in the basics is so many times, we land up with faulty plans. All this can be cleaned up, if all these consultants are all signed up at day one itself.
Yeah, absolutely true.
I think we could possibly take this a step further, where one can argue for actually being a part of at the table as a stakeholder when we are discussing the brief for the project. Happened to us a couple of projects where, I did a project in Kochi recently, which opened up as the first Tribute Portfolio hotel. That hotel was supposed to be a business hotel, which absolutely made zero sense in a resort location like Kochi. And, when we work together with the clients, because most owners are very proud of their heritage. They see about the local conditions that an outsider may not be able to see very quickly. And I think it was as much a learning for me as as anyone else to sort of be a part of that dialogue. And I think that really is the crux. One has to, get involved with the planning of the project even before their core expertise kicks in, to sort of establish a shared vision for the property. I think Jeremy mentioned that eloquently earlier as well. Just wanted to point that out. But I fully concur with the rest of the panelists over here. The sooner we come in, the better it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that it's not just interior designer or just that every team member gets involved at early stage. And we very often we talk how what's the difference between what was designed and what's actually gets built, and that's the answer. If all the consultants have a chance to get together right from day one and establish the relationship and communication channels and share the vision from different angles, maybe something is better for back of house planning, maybe something is better for lighting, for interior design, and when they all share their ideas and have a chance to successfully collaborate and interact with the owner and with each other and the operator, we always will have one way better product at the end. And we're not about the difference what was designed and what was built and trying to feel like who's at fault that it was not built as designed.
Marko, we are working on a project together.
Yes, we are, Bobby.
Yes. So they're the architects, we are the ID, and because we started early together, we landed up with a really efficient plan from day one. So work would go on smoothly, and we were able to iron out whatever planning issues that were cropping up. Is because we were both appointed at the same time. Marko came in a little bit earlier, but we came in pretty much soon.
Vandana, you are back, so take over.
Yes, I'm so sorry. So Marko, since the question is on you, what has been your experience working in India, and do you have any advice for owners who are building in India, vis-a-vis what you see happening abroad in the design of hotels?
Well, a lot of issues are quite common worldwide. From us, one of the key elements, starting with the owner at the beginning, are these honest discussions, not trying to hide the budget or actual goals, how to add 2 or 3 floors or how to expand later, but that we have right at the beginning a brief and the narrative and a common vision we can share and discuss. That's something which is probably the most helpful right at the beginning. We look the owner, like Bobby mentioned with Mr. Kashwani, Padul Kashwani, that when he brings the consultants together in one room and start discussing on the project, that we gain the trust of the owners and we can execute their vision with a full confidence that we are working together as a team.
Right. Abhishek, you head the Indian arm of HPA out of Mumbai. How do your designs balance the cultural ethos, and now with the pandemic and constrained budgets and everyone trying to create a sense of a greater sense of place and ownership? Do you see a change in dialogue with your owners, with a greater shift towards the response to being Indian? What's been your experience, or are we still getting there in terms of figuring out the response?
Well, I think there are sort of 2 questions in there, aren't there?
Yes.
I mean, in the sense that I think the pandemic part, I would say, is a little bit different because that's something which is sort of unprecedented, right? And as much as we can try, I don't think nobody has any sort of control over this sort of a situation. So we are all just trying to make the best of it. In terms of hospitality, I've maintained that the way our ethos has been about designing hotels, which is dialogue driven, which is also very process driven, given that we've been doing this for a lot of years. We've always been very particular about issues of hygiene, issues of separation of how to work together with a facility planner for an efficient planning of back of house, the guest experience. But I think what this has forced us to really think is, is the world going to change fundamentally in terms of, the brand, what you call like guest touch points, like they're literally touch points. Are we still going to have very sort of intimate rituals of like, garlanding somebody or, being in the same personal space as the next person? To that extent, I think while it seems scary at the moment, but I think the world will move forward. And I'm believing and I'm being optimistic in the fact that at some point of time, maybe not too far away, hopefully, we are going to go back into a future which is more safe, and we continue to sort of have those timeless values of human interaction, which is what makes hospitality enjoyable. I would hate for us to sort of try to design COVID-free or COVID-proof hotels. I don't think anything like that exists. With regards to the other question about how do we incorporate the local culture, I think simply put, we are just trying to tell stories. We are trying to create an authentic experience. The travelers have become more discerning over the years as everyone tries to go out, everyone tries to look at the local cultures, take back a memory. And I think it's almost become an imperative for us to as designers, engage with local communities and try to show the best face of the local culture. To that extent, in India, we have invested in 2 offices for over a decade now. I've been part of them. And I think that is a fundamental difference between our approach as HDA, where we really try to situate our offices in the middle of the action, try to soak up the local culture, understands what are the strengths and weaknesses of the local market, and then try to work from the strengths while we shore up the weaknesses. So we are very aware at this point of time, working in India, where the strengths are, which lie a lot of times in the local art, culture, craftsmanship. But we are also not, unaware of the local building practices or the lack of regulation in, the unskilled labor sector. But I think as long as we are aware, we try to make the best of the situation. So far, I think we've been moderately successful, and it can only get better, I think.
That's true, Abhishek. I think the stories we tell are all encompassing, and they take care of a lot of different aspects of design and culture, and of course, anything that influences the social context of the times. Peter, coming to you, you've worked on the Ginger concept, and you've pretty much developed the prototype for India, the revised prototype for India, if I may call it. What have been your learnings through this project that you've done very closely with your owners, and of your experience of working in India, and if there are some key takeaways that maybe owners or international designers could take from this experience of yours?
Yeah, thank you. I told a little bit about Ginger already. Whilst you
sorry, I'm so sorry if you've already spoken about it.
But fine, there's a new aspect, because Abhishek just said that he tries very much, and we do that also, to get the local feeling. And of course, that's nothing that a European designer could do for India. For us, India is just one country, and we would not see a different style between East and West and North and South of India. But we were brought in to bring an international touch to that brand, that Ginger brand, which you just mentioned. That was the idea of Mr. Chatwal, to say it should not be a simple Indian brand. It should be brought to a level of, to an international level of, he likes to call it lean luxury, a theme that is, a brand development which goes a little bit above what Ginger has been before. So that was a very interesting development, very close with the CEO of the Indian hotel, IHCL, sorry, and then it was finally brought into one project. So that was a great experience from developing a new brand into a project. But for me, an Indian perspective is difficult to take. What I've learned, that was also part of your question, it doesn't matter what we specify, we have to re-specify when we work in India. Yeah, really. There are big companies in Germany who import fabrics from Asia, also from India, and then they sell those fabrics for triple the price. And we have our partner in India, Gaurav Premchandani. He really had the success to find the same fabric from the manufacturer for less than a third of the price that we pay here. So that was an easy re-specification, but also the others, especially textiles, of course. India is very good in textiles. No reason to import things from Europe or the rest of the world. But of course, that's the specifications that we have to make, because we have to go to our library and find the materials that we want to put together. And then Gaurav starts re-specifying according to what India has.
So you have an arm dedicated to sort of value engineering the original specification that you create.
Yes.
And okay, so how long does this process typically take from design to really figuring out what you're actually, going to build or specify, if I may say so?
Ongoing. It's not that we produce it first and then Gaurav takes it and re-specifies. We really work closely together, and very often in our studio we start with the concept design, and then Gaurav takes it and really starts to develop the design, and also to develop the idea of materials that we should bring in. So then it's only a question of discussing patterns and colors instead of completely re-specifying. The re-specification, that was the learning whilst we did Ginger, which was our first project. But now we've adapted to the situation, and Gaurav really starts from the beginning to work together with us to find the materials locally.
Great. So that's basically a partnership between you and your local arm, and that works for you. Great. So Jeremy, you and I had a brief chat on building efficiency, and I'd like to ask you, as more institutional capital is seen coming into the hotel sector in India, do you now see greater focus on budget and say return on investment? And how has this impacted your approach going forward?
Okay. I mean, I as responsible designers, it's always been a critical point in the hotel design. I mean, clearly hotels are businesses. I mean, you only have to look at the game of Monopoly. The ultimate goal is that you want hotels, you don't want houses. It's a good investment when it works and when it works properly. So my old partner and mentor used to refer to these. He said, Jeremy, at the end, once we've got the dialogue, once we've got the aesthetics right, we've got to understand that hotels are bed factories. It's about getting people to stay in them, and it's the most efficient way. And as far as the operators and the owners go, we have to ensure that they are efficient, they can be cleaned easily, they have the right number of staff to the right number of people ratio, etc. So I think what we've got to look at is, as designers and architects and engineers, we have the power to assist our clients in producing very efficient and very sleek buildings. I mean, we constantly look at the ratio between the number of guests, the number of guest keys that you've got on the property compared to the rest of the ratio with the entire gross floor area, the ratio of the back of house, the amount of circulation you put into there. And I think these are all things that quite clearly will affect the bottom line, because obviously at the end of the day, it will affect how much the building costs. The more you build, the bigger your building, the more it will cost. It's very, very simple. That's a linear relationship. What's not a linear relationship, however, is a second thing, which is becoming more and more important. As the cost of labor is increasing, and more importantly, as the cost of energy is becoming absolutely crucial to both operators, but also as a community, as a global community, we've got to take responsibility as to the heating, the cooling, and the lighting loads on all these projects. Yeah, and I think what we have to understand is that larger footprints mean bigger volumes, and the relationship is not linear either between the two. So you can increase a building by 20%. That doesn't mean the volume increases 20%. It increases more. So I think we, as a responsible group of consultants, we have to take that on board. The other thing is that as we make buildings more efficient, if they can be run sleeker, it also means that the operator inevitably can look at his head count, and the organisation of the building and of the property can mean that it can be staffed more efficiently. I think I also want to talk on the fact that, Abhishek was talking a little bit earlier about the current pandemic. I mean, we're also looking, I think we're in new times for certain things, because if the situation in social distancing continues, I think some of the space planning standards that we've been looking at in the past may well have to be readjusted and relooked at. So, we all know what our the square meterage allowances, for example, for a specialty dining restaurant is, or a buffet restaurant, I think they may well be flex and they may be different. I think the services that our operators are looking at providing for each one of the guests is also going to be probably reconsidered. I think these are really interesting because I think actually as we look at these standards and we look back as a company, we can see the evolution of the big international brands. And I think we're at a pause point in this. And I think there is going to be some interesting changes. And I think it's something that the designers can intelligently respond to.
Thanks, Jeremy. That's a lot of insight and I think very, very constructive points from your side. Thanks a lot. Ritu, you've been involved in developing the entire IBIS portfolio pretty much in India, if I may say so. IBIS is as a brand is highly focused on return on investment, if I'm correct. So how has your decision making been in the design process there? From a budget standpoint for the brand.
So yes, while we started the IBIS India, I would say almost 15 years ago, and while we had to follow the Accor key elements in brand standards, which are very paramount to the brand, but the brief was to adapt it to the Indian guest sensibilities. So one of the factors of return on investment is, of course, the fact that the rooms are absolutely cookie cutter. On a design front, we actually created a new design for India, keeping in mind the layout standards of Accor, and brought in the local element through artwork. We have behind the bed panel, we have a panoramic black and white photographs of the city. Along the way, interestingly, when the global recession happened, the global financial crisis in 2008 happened, and I would say that actually was a correction on budgets for all of hospitality. So even for an IBIS with a cookie cutter room, we went back to the drawing board with the client's team, the project team, looked at detailing. How can we roll out the rooms and cut the cost in the detailing, still keeping the design essence in mind and not diluting in the guest quality? It's an interesting story, actually, and I think I don't have enough time to talk about it. But since then, we have actually designed a new generation IBIS room. I think the first is in Kolkata and is being rolled out. And so we have changed the design in terms of, again, the look and feel. We have looked at art locally. We've made looked at each property with art differently. In the public areas, we have very small footprints. So we have to bring in, again, the brand standards and the guest comfort in a smaller space. So I think over here, while budget is paramount, I think, in fact, in all projects, and it's more challenging because you still have to create a certain benchmark. I think what is great about working with a brand like Accor is that the benchmark, the standards, the guest comforts are not diluted, and you can have an as comfortable stay in an IBIS and on a mattress and a shower as in any five-star hotel. But interestingly, since we're talking about budgets, I would like to say that today it's about smart design and smart planning, because you cannot keep diluting budgets in interiors. I mean, you cannot go lower than, let's say, a laminate cost, right? Or a tile. And even if you do, it's about quality, because you can either get a really bad quality tile because you want to meet the budget, but that's not what the aim is in hospitality or in any project. You need maintenance, you need durability. So where can we actually work on the return on investment? And I think looking at the current situation with the pandemic, and as the fellow panelists said, we don't really know how much the impact is right now. But there are things which can be thought through, which is multi-use of spaces. I think that has to come back in a big way, whether it's a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, especially in luxury segments where space was the luxury. I think today utility is the luxury. And I would actually bring back smaller meeting rooms. When I was looking at Taj in '93, Taj Mahal, Delhi, we used to have small meeting room spaces which a guest could rent out for a meeting or an interview, like a small office cubicle. And hotels have done away with that for some reason. Now you have a minimum of 12-seater meeting rooms and then banqueting. I think smaller meeting rooms need to come back because people do want to work from spaces out of home, or they may not be able to go to office for some reason. I think private dining spaces can be looked at differently, where you have more of private dining, more of semi-private even, because you would then cater to physical distancing, at the same time giving the guest an experience and maybe even charging a little for that, where the hotel can actually earn a revenue. So to me, I think return on investment, it has to be looked at, like we said, where if the designer comes in earlier in the planning with the key stakeholders, you look at the spaces as to how you can actually earn revenue for the clients and add to the guest comfort and usability.
Thanks, Ritu. I think your story reminds me of one of my favorite projects, the Holiday Inn Express portfolio that we did last year. We built 10 hotels in a year with, I think, the smallest room size in India today, over 14 square meter, where every square foot was accounted for. And what we truly enjoyed in that project was our partnership, not just with the brand, but with the client, who was closely engaged in, I think every inch of detail throughout the project. So coming to a slightly lighter talk, Bobby, I'll come to you. What is that one hotel project that you truly enjoyed being a part of? And if you could throw a little bit of light on your owner relationship also as part of this project.
Yeah, I have been lucky to have had really nice clients throughout my journey from day one. I've had fantastic clients and who've given me a lot of freedom to do what the hell I want, wish to, and it all started with my first larger project, which was the New Delhi Meridian, the one at CP, and it was a large renovation project, and I won it in a design competition, and that was my first large hotel. So initially my clients were not very sure about my capabilities, but it was a running hotel that had to be done in 4 parts spread over 4 years. And so the first year I made a presentation, was able to give them, after it being built, we gave them 200% return on investment in the first year. So clients were extremely happy. Then after that, the years after that, year after year, I stopped giving them presentation. They just had a budget for me. This year we want to spend so much, you don't really need to give serious presentation. And in those days, the brands were not very particular about overlooking these minutest details to cross-verify all your designs, whether it's up to their brand standards. This is around 15 years ago, and the brand's concept then was art and tech. So that property, after it got completed, we had a fabulous time because I was allowed to do what the hell I wanted. The euro was still weak in those days. It was like 43 rupees to a euro, to 1 euro. That allowed me a lot of money power to buy really fun stuff to do up the hotel, and great materials, great technology.
So was that the time when build was sort of integrated with design?
Build? No.
As in, you're saying you were given a budget and you could design without giving a presentation.
No, yeah. Yes, in the sense that I know that this year my designs has to be worth so much in terms of construction value. it's like, say,
Right.
in this year you have a budget of 83 crores. So I have to use that money judiciously, using
Right.
EPCG, and all that to get the best ingredients to make a really cool stuff. And we were able to do, which was, wow, for those days, first hotel with color changing lighting, first hotel, all complete hotel with flat screens, first hotel with, LED reading lights, new age materials. So we had a blast, and the client gave me a free hand, and I was able to give them return on investment. So I'm very proud of that project, and that's what got us into this hospitality business in a big way. Actually, I'm not a interior designer. I'm an urban planner. It so happened that dealing with hoteliers, I enjoyed having clients like hoteliers, who dress up well, who smell good, who gel their hair. The meetings are in good spaces, in air-conditioned, good hotels, unlike going to a construction site of a real estate developer, So I was having a good time. So automatically, when you give your energies in one direction, that part of the business starts growing. I'm actually an urban planner, and I came into India through a large resort township, one of the largest resort townships in the world, which was the Ambi Valley project, which I won in a design competition. And that's also a semi-hospitality related project. And I had a fantastic relationship with my client, Mr. Subrata Roy, chairman of Sahara, that gave me like unlimited budgets to do all the stuff you see at Ambi Valley, creating lakes, dams, networks, resorts. So I've had many such beautiful clients that have been great patrons that allow us to do all the fun stuff.
Thanks, Bobby. Thanks. That really does sound like you had fun on your first project and you had a lot of freedom there. Marko, I think you've built a very serious rapport of yourself on this panel. So what's been your favorite project? And if you could quickly tell us why, I think we'll quickly get to everyone post this.
Like I started before, you remember the first one and the last one, and all the incidents in between. But every project on its own, it's a special project. And we treat every project as a unique project. In a way, for the first one, for me, it's the one of the first projects which I will always remember is one first large project which was built in India. Not then you just did the design and drag it for a few years and then it died. And that was Park Hyatt in Chennai, which we actually designed 3 times. We designed it first at Courtyard Hotel, and then the owner changed the brand and went to Hyatt, and we designed it at Hyatt Regency. And a year later, they asked us to redesign it to Park Hyatt, and we have to fly to Chicago a couple of times and have a presentation. At that time, there was still presentations in Chicago, and it was built, and we are still in great relationship with the client. But to pick up on what Jeremy was saying before, some of the latest one, today when the areas and the sustainability and the conservation aspects of the project are so much more important. I really like one of our mountain spa resorts, which is Westin property above Rishikesh. Very, very difficult site. From the bottom of the site to the top of the site, it's 100-meter vertical difference. There was existing structure on the site when we started, and the owner took me there and explained to me how he's really attached to this existing structure, and we have to incorporate it and keep it. And then we try to preserve every single tree and access to it and boulders on site and minimize the footprint and the impact on the actual environment. And then, of course, through the design and with the engineers also put a sense of longevity of the project, how it's going to be managed, how it's going to be maintained for the next 20, 30 years. In this climate, you really don't need to air condition everything, and how to have indoor-outdoor spaces, how to bring the nature into the hotel. It's in the final stages now of construction. All the superstructure is done, and they're doing interior design now. So it's a great project, and I'm looking forward to opening.
Thanks, Marko. Jeremy, coming to you, you've worked on a lot of really large projects as part of WATG, and I think also worked for the Sheikh of Dubai, etc. So do you eventually, when the project is built, does it satisfy you in terms of, what was proposed as, this beautiful sketch to what actually gets built? Is there a gap there, or are you pretty much satisfied with what comes up?
Apologies about that. Yeah, I think this speaks to probably one of your other earlier questions about how long does the designer stay with the project through to the end. And I think inevitably, most of us as design consultants say, if you're with the client on the opening day, it will probably be an awful lot more successful as delivering on that vision. And I think, there are, I think everybody has one or two disappointments in their career, but the vast majority are absolutely extraordinary. I look back and think about the early sketches in 2000 that we did, for example, as a design team for the Emirates Palace in Abu Dhabi. And if you're talking about life-changing projects, oh my goodness, that was 3.5-4 years of my life that changed me as a designer, as a person, as everything contextually, working with experts completely outside my field, and then the end result to actually see a project, a hotel and conferencing facility, which is now a national icon. Absolutely extraordinary, and very few people have the opportunity to do that within their careers, and I feel fortunate that's been the case. So we've got like most people, our projects are like our children. We don't, it's unfortunate if we say we've got favorite ones, but I think that as I look at the new ones that are coming online now, I see a couple that they're not yet in the public domain, and they're going to be astonishing. They are going to be really astonishing. So stay tuned. Keep looking at our website, because we hope we're going to announce one of them pretty soon. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. We're definitely keeping track of what you're building here now. Abhishek, coming to you, just a fun, quick question towards the end before we wrap up. So, when an owner is looking for a designer, he's obviously looking at capability of a firm. Do you think EQ has some level of play when you're engaging with an owner? Maybe when it comes to repeat business, or maybe the first time he's hiring you? How does EQ play an important role vis-a-vis just capability?
I think it's priceless because I personally can vouch for myself. I've been very lucky to have a lot of repeats. I would in fact think about 80% of our portfolio right now is like 20% of our client list, in the sense we get a lot of repeat work. And I mean, apart from the fact that I would like to think that it has to do a lot with the merit of our service on the project, there is something to be said about the fact that, how do you sort of, if I may say, how do you read a room, right? If you're going into a discussion with a prospective client, it matters a lot to them if they feel something, if they feel that, we are resonating in terms of what our mutual expectations are from the project and our expertise. So I think at some point of time, it's also true that having a local connect always helps. And like I mentioned before, given that we have local studios in India, we have definitely benefited from that because we are able to sort of reach out to the clients who may not have otherwise, or who wouldn't have thought to maybe look at us as an international firm if we did not have a local connect. But I think connect is really important. It's also good to sort of walk a mile in the owner's shoe and understand that building a hotel is a large undertaking. It's not for the faint-hearted, and I actually empathize with most of our clients when it comes to budget decisions. It's not easy, and one has to almost think like, if I have to spend their money, it's like spending my own. So I try to be careful with that too. But more importantly, I think if you can show them the vision of, and certainly they may have very unique ideas, but I think it's important to get into a conversation with them and make them understand how you're saving them time they won't otherwise by themselves. I think that sort of boils down to the basic tenet of proving to them that you're an expert I think a lot of times, we get lost in jargon and not realize there is a basic transactional value to that conversation. So I think I like to keep it basic, and I, stay humble in the meeting. I try to understand that, with some confidence, obviously, to also tell them if we see something which is not going to make too much sense design-wise or other. But I think it has to be a conversation. Just the acceptance of that goes a long way in establishing that emotional connect.
So Peter, do you have any issues sort of convincing clients in India about the kind of value you could add being an international designer, or is it? So we do see a lot of Indian owners sort of deflecting toward, moving towards international designers, and many who are skeptical. So how do you work towards building that trust with an owner?
That's a good, difficult question. I never thought about it actually, because I was brought in by a client, Mr. Puneet Chatwal, who really wanted to have the international experience in India. And nowadays we work with other clients also. But whenever we get approached, it's because we are not Indians. I don't know why, but very often Indian owners seem to be interested to get some different international design into their properties. So I do not have to argue why they want to hire me. They just do it. So I don't know.
Oh, that's great. So great. I think we've had some great insight from all our international as well as Indian designers. And I think we'll all go forward towards building our own little autobiographies, as I would like to call it, and leave a wonderful legacy behind. You
have 5 more minutes to go. You can take 5 more minutes to go on.
I think if we have 5 more minutes, we can quickly just put in a point each towards how we think, or what's going to change because of this pandemic being here in hotel design. So if you can quickly, I can go to Marko on this. And I think those who have already answered can avoid the question. Marko, if you can quickly sort of bring in your 2 points here.
Well, in the short time, everybody's talking about that, and there will be some changes in the design, but I don't think so that the hotel industry will completely change overnight because of pandemic we went over the past 6 months. We will adapt, hotel industry will adapt, and then we will collectively figure out with medical research, with hotel design, with the industry itself, how to move forward. But I don't see that this will be a complete redesign and complete new start for the hotel industry.
Ritu, I know we've discussed this on another panel, but yeah, your two points on that.
I agree with Marko a bit on that, and ideally, or I would say it's a wish list that there are not too many changes in the hotel industry, and but yes, I would like to see, and I do think this is going to happen, where it is going to be more technology based. So I'm hoping with that, the positive is that guest check-in becomes more efficient and check-out becomes more efficient. Things which have probably already started around the world have yet to come to India and would hopefully be fast forwarded. Use of mobile check-ins, more than access cards, maybe like this, they're using your mobile to check in, having your guest history in advance. And it's not so much design, but I think the interface of the process of, like a reception counter, do you really need a large reception counter because of the efficiency of technology going forward? So I would still like to see, the hotel GM or front office there with a namaste and a smile, who is ready to be there for the guest interaction. But I should have the choice as a guest to be able to, swipe my mobile or a card and just walk straight to the room. And I think this is where we have to work together with, of course, the brands, that if those changes happen in the process of technology, then the interior designer would plan the space as to what is really needed. And very quickly, interestingly, when we did the keys, I think almost 10 years back, they actually were quite ahead of time, because we had planned a check-in kiosk in Hosur, and the rest of the keys, owner-run properties by Bergwijn. So check-in kiosks were planned, but I think it was ahead of its time, so it maybe didn't take off as much as they hoped. They had also a women's floor where you had a video door phone. So if a lady guest is staying alone, she can actually stay in the room and have the video door phone like you do in a residence. Now, this today could actually be an interesting thing for being contactless, because if as a guest, like I think the hoteliers are already saying that we will not come to the room unless the guest asks. So if you have a video door phone, and I know there's a cost to it, that's a separate discussion. But if you have a video door phone, you can choose whether you want to have contact or not with the person coming to your room. So I think there are a lot of interesting things which can happen with technology. I feel that you still have to have certain touch points with the guests and the hotel staff. That should not go away, and especially with Indian hospitality, I think it will be very much there. And the rest, of course, we are all part of the future. We'll be knowing about it soon. Thank you.
Jeremy spoke about, thanks Ritu, you've touched upon a lot of points vis-a-vis, having lesser touch points between guests and the hotel. Jeremy also spoke about, greater accountability towards the building envelope that is constructed, and, the accountability of how much FSI we are building. Jeremy, from an architectural standpoint, is there anything else that you would like to pitch in that you see as a change post this pandemic? Jeremy, you'd like to unmute, please. Yeah.
I'm unmute myself. Sorry. Whilst I agree with the themes of both Marko and Ritu have just come up with, I think that we massively underestimate the fact that the hotels rely on their guests. Their guests will vote with their feet. If they do not feel safe within that environment, the hotel will not be populated. And I think that people have to, the operator will understand that very quickly as we come back to the new normal. And understanding that, I think, is a challenge, because I think that the space standards, how we interact, is going to be key to it. I think what Rita was just saying about select service is very interesting. At the upper end, we see that our Uberlux hotels have always sold exclusivity. It's about the distance between the guests. We see photographs of the luxury resorts. You're the only person on the beach, you and your wife. That's what they're selling. They're selling that dream. I think it's going to become a challenge for what sits in between those, and how those we act with the guests. So I think there's some interesting things, and I think actually, as a bunch of designers and intelligent people, we can work with those operators, and we can make sure that business stays there, and it makes it safe for people to travel.
Thank you. We have 3 minutes, one each to Vandana, Bobby, and me.
So I think, as problem solvers, I see designers as problem solvers, and I see the pandemic and anything and everything that the owner wants to build as sort of the constraint that we want to work within. And I think constraints lead to great solutions. So I'm very, very positive about the future, and I hope that all of us can do great work and build beautiful hotels going forward, and we all continue to do great work. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I'll give this over to Bobby to conclude.
No, I'm extremely optimistic that what we're going through is just temporary in nature. And even in the past, it's been known that like 100 years ago, there were pandemics even then, and world was affected, but then few years later it was all forgotten. So when we build hotels, we build hotels to last a century, or 50 years or 25 years, and the only change that I think we should consider now is temporary nature in terms of check-in or, social distancing. So, the all-day dining restaurants might get affected, and that's about it. So, but you have to think, years from now. So the volume of the space still stays the same. So I don't think any of the hotel brands, the big brands, have really asked us to make any big changes to our design because of this present situation. So all our projects are on nothing's happened. And they're there to open. They're there to open 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now. So it's only the projects that were about to be open now that have been affected. That's true, or which were halfway through. They've gone down a bit slow. But the projects which are in the pipeline, in the drawing boards, they're all the clients are pretty much keen on having them open, as per their schedule. So we are still working around the clock. We're still having sleepless nights and burning the midnight oil, and it's not that bad.
Okay, great. So ladies and gentlemen, that brings an end to this session. Don't go. And this also was the last session of the summit part of the BW Hotelier Indian Hospitality Summit. We get into the awards. Having said that, this show tells me we overcame internet problems. Vandana, you came back and you came back extremely well. I'm so happy you're smiling. I'm delighted. You prepared very hard for this. And this goes to you, right?
Thank you so much for bearing with me.
No, don't worry.
Sorry about all of that. Yeah.
Take heart. Don't worry. Remember Hercules? He's the most powerful man. Even he dropped it. Having said that, this has been India's biggest hospitality summit and award show over 5 days, bigger than more than 2.5 times. We've had viewership in excess of 200,000 as yet, and growing, because the real action starts when the replays are watched, because they keep clocking. Are you going to be back if I was to tell you I was to do an architectural design, engineering, and purchase show, a big one? Would you come back?
Yes.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Would love to be part of it.
Right. So I am planning to do that. I'm going to pull you in, discuss with you, and I won't go into it without discussing you with all of you. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have and my team has. I've enjoyed every moment of these 75 minutes. Let me start by thanking Vandana, our host. You did well, Vandana. Ritu,
so
you did extremely well. It's such a pleasure to see you. Joehnk.
Thank you.
Joehnk, keep coming back. Pleasure seeing you here. Peter, keep coming back. It's good to see you, right? Marko, we shall see you again soon. Such a pleasure seeing you. Abhishek, wonderful seeing you and having you on the show. And Bobby, my friend, my brother, thank you for being there. Yeah, it's always a pleasure. This is not my first time with him. And this is not my last time. We'll keep coming back. Thank you again. Bye-bye.